You are live. Okay, great. Wonderful. It's good to be live. And why is my screen crooked? Is my head crooked or is my screen crooked? Okay, welcome to Monday Night Moshiach Matters for another exciting, action-packed evening together to go over, you guessed it, Moshiach. Because Moshiach does matter. All right, let's rock and roll. We are continuing on the new sequence of Nun Base, the most recent year we have of the teachings of our Rebbe, and the most important battle plans from our king on how to conduct ourselves and what we need to do to win this final Skullus war. And let's hop right in. I know I say this every single time, but it's really true. This is another awesome sikha, very, very exciting. It's hard to live up to last week's Chaya Sarah, but we're going to do what we can. Welcome back, Levi Yitzchak. I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. I know when you don't join us live, you're still watching them after, so I won't give you a hard time. But it's good to have you live. Okay. Parshas told us. Aleph. Yudua shekol rosh chodesh yesh inyan klali hamashvotef l'kol chadashim. So this sikh was originally given on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which is going to be in our calendar this coming week, Sunday and Monday. And the Rebbe says like this. First of all, every single Rosh Chodesh is a very general, important thing. So every single Rosh Chodesh we know is like a mini Rosh Hashanah. In fact, it is the custom of many Hasidim to fast on Rosh Chodesh because it's like a Yom Kippur Katana, miniature Yom Kippur, Yom Rosh Hashanah, where you're basically resetting. You know, every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur we reset the whole year. Every Rosh Chodesh we kind of reset the month and start brand new with new energy. So the Rebbe says in general, Rosh Chodesh is a very important time for the Yidden. And specifically this Rosh Chodesh of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, due to the unique things that take place in this month and all the Yom Tovim, all the festival days of this month. Okay, let's explain. Deshvor Hinyan Yuchad Shel Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Hein be'inyan haklali Rosh Chodesh, v'hein be'inyan prati Rosh Chodesh Kislev, shebo mudgash yoser kol haklal she'inyan Rosh Chodesh kalakam. As we said a second ago, it is not only a general Rosh Chodesh, but the Rebbe says that the Rosh Chodesh of the month of Kislev happens to be the most unique, important Rosh Chodesh of all of them. Powerful statement. And the main thing is Akasher v'hashaychus kanal lahanakudas ikris. The colors Yisrael, excuse me. The connection and relevance to this main point that is emphasized in the life of every single Yid in general throughout all the generations. And the Rebbe said, and this has been a thorough point that the Rebbe has been discussing as recently, especially when we got to the last few sichos of Nun Beis, that all the days of your life exist for one purpose, to bring Mashiach. That's why we're here. I work with a lot of youth, young adults, and one of the biggest areas of confusion people have is trying to find their path in life. What am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? Why am I here? What do I do? So what you do for a living is how you make your money. But what you do as a Yid is much more encompassing than that. And in fact, the Rebbe right now tells us very clearly, the whole entire purpose of every one of our lives is to bring the Gula. That's why we're here. And the Rebbe said, and how much more so does this apply specifically to our generation and the period we are in now, as we have been discussing many times as of recent. Okay, base. So the general matter of Rosh Chodesh, we see through the name of Rosh Chodesh, is emphasized. Chodesh Melashon Chidush. Chodesh in the Hebrew word for month is the same root letters of the Hebrew word for Chidush, which means a renewal or something new or innovative. Al Shem HaChidush, the Moled Levana. And it's referring, the Rebbe says, to the renewal of the moon. Shla'ach Kriyesh HaHoloches HaMeta'amatas Ad Shemitlata Amas HaMetikase Legabri Nasyes Choler Shelo Ba'oifen Shel Chitchadshut. We know that the moon goes through cycles. It waxes and wanes. So in the beginning of the month, it starts its waxing cycle. It's increasing. And when it gets to the 15th month, it's at its full state, halfway through the month. And then after that, it starts shrinking until we get to the end of the month where you don't see it at all. It's completely not apparent to the physical eye. And then after that, in the beginning of the month, it begins its process of waxing again, where it starts its regrowth, its renewal. Nasi Solada Shaloi Boyfriend Shadad, Belushon Kasu, Mifkades Ki Yufkad, Mishovecha. So I Hasroy Yufkoi, Mishovecha, the Dugmas, Helen Mikisa Helavana. Nasser is a Haron Nikofois, Nifkades, the Dugmas Molad Halavana Mahadash. So there's a quote where it says, when David HaMelech was not present, I forgot where this is brought down from. But basically, was King Shaul, I believe, said to him, your place is empty, and this will cause us to, you'll be remembered. In other words, when you're used to having someone present, in wherever it may be, in your class, in your shul, at your workplace, whatever, and all of a sudden you don't see them one day, it causes you to pause. Hey, where's so and so? It causes you to remember that person. And this is an example of the birth of the moon when it becomes new, because we don't see it; it's not present, so it causes us to pause and be like, "Hey, where's the moon?" We're thinking about it because we don't see it. That even when the moon is at its renewal, when it's only one little tiny point, if you ever look at the cycle of the moon, you'll see in the beginning of the month, it has just a little dot, and then it slowly starts increasing in its volume until, as we mentioned, it becomes full, and then it starts waning again, going back down to its nothingness. And why is it called Rosh? So we're breaking apart the two words of Rosh Chodesh, which literally means the head of the month. Just like Rosh Hashanah means the head of the year, Rosh Chodesh means the head of the month. And it's referring to this point of Rosh right now, he's saying, is like the head. Just like the general existence of a mensch is in his head. The main part of our godly soul we know is in our brain. The main root of the animal soul is in the heart. So the head of a person literally is what guides that person. And just the same way, the head of the month is what guides the month, just like the head of the year. That's why we know every year around the time of Rosh Hashanah, from the month of Elul, we do tshuva. And we focus on how we want our year to be. So every month, it's a renewal of that same idea where we're meant, in an ideal world, to spend some time thinking about the past month, focusing on the upcoming month, and thinking about just like a mini Rosh Hashanah every month to redo this process of how do I want to enter into this month? How do I want the energy of this month to be? And what do I want to accomplish in this month as it comes up? And this work of the Jewish people is equivalent to the month. And the future to come, it says that there's a pasuk that says in Gemara Sanhedrin that in the future to come, the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon, made new again like the moon. What does that mean? And the unique thing that is done to the world through the service of the Yidden. Shayre, what is ba'oidam mis'alim the darga na'elis yosher, mikomo difnei yeridas amnamat. Kafish gizgala before bagul amitis hashtemari dal melcham mashiach. So just like the moon, renews every single month and starts new, the idea is that, and it diminishes. We see that the Jewish people are working the world. We have a yerida, meaning that we go down, like kind of like we don't see us, like a moon, meaning we may not necessarily see what's going on. And then we go up again, right? This is how things flow. So it's this constant state of going down in order to go higher again. And we will see the ultimate fulfillment of all the work that we do in the days of Mashiach, which we've already begun in now, when everything will be revealed for good. Excuse me. There's to say that in Rosh Chodesh it reveals that every single one of the Jewish people, Yitzhak Mashiach Shabo, has a spark of Mashiach inside of us. As we learned last week, every Jew has a spark of Mashiach and a spark of Moshe. The spark of Moshe is connected to Chokhmah, or the head, and the spark of Mashiach is connected to Malchus, or the lower part, and they're both connected together, like the sun and the moon. And the spark of Mashiach is connected to our Yechida, the fifth level of our soul, what's going on Dov. It's a spark of the general Yechida, which is the soul of Mashiach. It's known Mashiach is the all-encompassing Yechida. He's the quintessential, is that a word? Quintessential soul of all the Jewish people. And all the sparks of all the Jewish people's highest level of our souls are all connected and bound up with him. And we know when Mashiach reveals himself, we will see the holy soul of the all-encompassing Yechida of all the Jewish people. Gimel. And now we're going to talk about what makes. So we talked a little about Rosh and about Chodesh, about the head of the month and the renewal of the month. And now we're going to talk about specifically what makes Rosh Chodesh Kislev so special. Shmo Chodesh, the name of the month, Kislev. Shabaklau based Betevos Kislev. Kislev, the Rebbe explains, is made up of two words put together. Excuse me. Kis, Chav Samech, and Lev, Lamed Vav. Kis Mura'ah Ha'helam V'kisui. V'kisa Halavana. Yivkat Mishovecha. The Rebbe says kis is going on kisui. Kisui literally means to be concealed or hidden. So the first part of Kislev is referring to the word kis, which is referring to a state of like the moon in the beginning of the month. It's hidden. And it's referring to that name in Kislev. The first part is hidden. And Lev, the second part, Lamed Vav, Shemisparoi Lamed Vav, Begamatria Eda. Mora'al Hegilui Demoleh Levana. So now the Rebbe says we have these two, just like we learned that the moon waxes and wanes every single month. In the month of Kislev, we literally have the name of the month indicative of that process. Because kis or kisui is concealment. At the beginning of the month, we don't see the moon. And then as it starts to wax and grow, then you have the second part of the word Kislev, which is Lev or Le, Lamed Vav, which is the same root, and it's referring to the same gematria 36 of Ela. Ela means to be revealed. And as the month goes on, the moon goes from concealment to revealing. So that happens every month. But what makes it unique about Kislev is the name of the month actually is indicative of that process. Revealing and concealing, revealing and concealing. This process, as the month continues, and that's what the Rebbe says, until the moon reaches its state of being full, which is on the 15th of the month. in the Rosh Chodesh. So 36 or Ela is also referring to a perfection of 6 and 6, which is the 6 emotional attributes that we have within us, the 6 spherot, from Chesed to Yisod, and each one within each other. So it's 6 times 6. So it's also referring to a completion of the Partsuf, which is the Partsuf is a Kabbalistic term for the formation or the group of spherot that are together, and what we call Za Anpin, which the main sphere is Tiferet, or the center, right? You got to be centered. So Kislev is, then we see, emphasizing the general concept of Rosh Chodesh in the same month. And even more than this, the Rebbe goes on to say, Kislev Mugash Inyan Shel Rosh Chodesh Yoser Misha'ar Rosh Chodesh Stam. And therefore we see the emphasis on Rosh Chodesh Kislev is even on a higher level than the rest of the other Rosh Chodeshes. Rosh Chodesh Stam hu ba'efe v'kisei, she'pirushay gam v'kisei, v'loshen kis aleph, she'aleph mora'al rak yitchila b'gilui. So the other months we have this concept of concealment, which is kis with an aleph, which is kisei, and the aleph, the kis we already say is concealing, and the aleph is what we say is the beginning of the revealing, or the beginning of the process of that, of the start of it growing again, the moon. But that's not the case with Kislev, because then we have Kis Lamed Vav. And this is emphasizing the completion and fulfillment of all the emotional attributes of Lamed Vav in their state of complete revealing. There's many Kabbalistic concepts connecting to the Lamed Vav. We've heard of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, but the 36 emotional attributes, which are the basis, or the 6 emotional attributes, which Za is called on God, or the sun, and the final, or the seventh, Malchus, is a partsuf in of itself, and that is referred to the Jewish people, or the Shechina, or the moon. And the Rebbe says, now we can understand that the month of Kislev is connected, and especially Rosh Chodesh Kislev, is connected to the redemption even more than all the other Rosh Chodeshes. It's a very powerful thing. So this Rosh Chodesh Kislev, just to give us an idea, the Rebbe says is the highest of every Rosh Chodesh for the entire year. And every Rosh Chodesh is a little Geula. It's a little Rosh Hashanah, as we spoke about. It's a renewal of the world, of the Yidden, of us individually. But on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, it's a renewal in the highest level because of this concealment and revealment that's baked into the name of Kislev, where it's not just the beginning of a revelation like we see in the other months, but it's a complete revelation. So in the month of Kislev, we have the complete concealment and the complete revealing as one. And also the redemption is connected to all the holy days, holy holidays in the month of Kislev. Yotes Hanukkah. Yom Tov, Techosmot, Yom Tov Hanukkah, Al Shem Hanukkahs HaMizbeach uMikdash, Bizman Beit Sheni, Nitchanecha Mechadash. We have the month. We have the Jewish holiday Hanukkah. When Hanukkah is also connected to Hanukkahs HaMizbeach, to the offering, to the inaugural offering of the Beis Hamikdash, which should happen immediately. And the unique thing that will happen when we have the third temple, which should happen immediately and will be in the full and complete redemption through our righteous Mashiach, Kamudgash, and the Rebbe talks every single sikha. You'll learn, for those of you who have been following us, and not all of them basikas, every single week is focused on Geula and redemption. The Rebbe took this concept of Geula from the beginning of his leadership as the beginning process of Mashiach. And you see in the early Sikhas of Maimarim, went from speedily in our days, Mashiach will come speedily in our days, to Mashiach B'Petach, Mashiach is at the doorpost, to the latter years we have now where the Rebbe says Mashiach is already here. We just have to open our eyes. So these sichos are action-packed about redemption, and it's really a focal point on all of it. And the Rebbe is switching our head from exile to redemption. K'murumas gam b'chidush u'mispar shmona shemehanucha l'gabi sheva yamim de Pesach v'Sukkos. We also see the connection to Hanukkah and the redemption, considering it's 8 days, where Pesach and Sukkos is 7 days. The mispar shmonas, even though in the diaspora we celebrate an extra day, Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah is really its own holiday. Anyways, Pesach we celebrate an extra day here, but according to the Midianites of the Torah, and in Israel there's 7 days each. Our Hanukkah is always 8 days. The mispar shmonas nirois Hanukkah, the gabi shemaas niras menorah shemikdash shelo ira hanes to Shem. We know that in the base of Mikdash there were 7 candles, seven branches, but in the Hanukkah menorah there's 8. There's 8 branches, and it's commemorating the miracle of the oil that lasted 8 days. And it's known that the number 8 is connected to the redemption. Number 7 is connected to the natural order of nature in the world. And we know that the number 8 is connected to a miraculous state of existence that's above the nature. We also have the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus in the month of Kislev, which is Yud-Tes Kislev, which is the festival of redemption of the Alter Rebbe. V'haga Geula Shel Admar HaEmsoi, the Yud Kislev. We also have the festival of redemption of the second Rebbe, the Middle Rebbe, who was also on the 10th of Kislev he was redeemed from prison, and on the 19th of Kislev the Alter Rebbe was redeemed from prison, and they're both connected to the Pnimis of Torah, the inner dimension of the Torah, the Mashiach Geula aspect of the Torah. And its own Chassidus is connected to the oil of the Torah. It says that Kabbalah is the wine, the yain of the Torah. But Chassidus is the oil of the Torah. Which is the level of the Yechida of the Torah. So the Rebbe says now that this whole concept of oil is connected to Chassidus. So in the month of Kislev, we have the oil of Chassidus from Hanukkah of 8 days. We have the oil of Chassidus on the 10th of Kislev from the Middle Rebbe's redemption. We have the oil of Chassidus from the 19th of Kislev from the Alter Rebbe's redemption. And we see, and the Rebbe says on this right now, that I have already found my servant David, and I've anointed him with oil. We know that Mashiach is anointed through oil, like all kings are. And this is a common theme in the latter sichos of the Nalach base, where the Rebbe has said repeatedly that God has already anointed Mashiach, that Mashiach is already here, and it's the beginning process of the full redemption. And that's what he's saying now, that I have already found my servant Mashiach, and I've already anointed him with oil. The Rebbe says we're just waiting for the acceptance of his kingship by the people. So we see the month of Kislev is packed. It's also the Rebbe's wedding anniversary in the month of Yud Dalet, I believe, Kislev. So it's also my wedding anniversary, in case anyone's interested. Chav Gimel. So there's a lot of action going on in this month, connected to redemption, connected to oil. The Hesef Shekavar Mikabal Mitafshit V'Chafutz As Yisrael Shechodesh Kislev Nikara Chodesh Agul. And in addition to this, we see that the work, the spreading out of the Jewish people, the month of Kislev, we refer to this month as the month of the Geula. Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Rosh Chodesh Shel Geula. And therefore, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the Rebbe says, is also referred to Rosh Chodesh of redemption. So what a powerful, powerful month we're entering. Noisef HaShaychis, HaKlaudis, the Geula, the Chidush, the Vanash Bakal Rosh Chodesh. In addition to this, the connection in general of the redemption to the renewal of the moon on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, שמורה החידוש לישראל, הצידן החדש כמויסי. ויוס דבר מלכה משיח. This is indicative of, it says, as we said earlier in the Sikha, that the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon when Mashiach comes. And we will discuss that further. Dalet. יש להיסר ביובר השייכוס דוגולסם של ישראל לחידוש לבנה. לכאורה אינו מובן. Oh, so the Rebbe has a question. So we just said that in the redemption of the Jewish people, when Mashiach comes in its full capacity, when he reveals himself, that we will then be renewed like the moon. So the Rebbe has a question on this. Mitzino hadreshi chazal sheshleimosam shel bnei Yisrael. Excuse me. B'zman Shlomo he ad b'dugmas me'ilui b'shleimus levana. Our rabbis teach us that the Jewish people reached our fullness. We were at a state of completion as best as we can be, still the exile, so it's not fully complete. When are the times of Shlomo HaMelech? And then it was like we were full like the moon. Just like the moon is on the 15th of the month. The Rebbe says, now, Levana b'rosh shel Nisan, v'techil la'ira v'chol shehi, v'chos ma'ira ad tasvav, yemim v'diskus shalo mismala, that we know that the moon begins its process of growth at the beginning of the month. And on the 15th of the month, it's full. If you look any 15th of any Hebrew month, and you look up on the moon, and as long as it's a clear day, the moon will be in a complete state of perfection. Which is why we bless the Kiris Levana between the 7th and the 14th of the month. Sometimes the 15th, it varies in the month cycle. Kach Yisrael tes vav dor min ha'Avraham v'ad Shlomo. In fact, the Rebbe goes on to say that the Jewish people, as we mentioned, reached our completion in the time of King Shlomo. And the completion is likened to the completion of the moon. And just like the moon is complete on the 15th of the month, take a wild guess how many generations from the first generation of the Jewish people from Abraham. By the way, just so you know, because there's a lot of confusion of like when the Rebbe says our generation is the generation of redemption. We're the last generation of exile, the first generation of redemption. What is a generation? How do you measure a generation? It's not 100 years. You measure a generation by the mission and the life of the leader of the generation. So the first generation of Jewish people is connecting to Abraham Avinu. He was the first Jew. And the generation from Abraham to Shlomo HaMelech is exactly 15 generations. So the number 15 represents this completion. So just like the moon is complete on the 15th of the month, the Jewish people reached their state of completion like a fullness of a moon when they went through 15 generations from Avraham Avinu, the first Jew, to Shlomo HaMelech, when the moon was full. Shenamar v'yashav Shlomo al kisei Hashem HaMelech. Ki amah sichera b'shlomoisa. And as the Gemara says, that King Shlomo sat on the throne of God and his kingship was complete. We know, I don't want to go too far off track, but it's customary that I discuss this thing every single year when we have the Sikha, because I find it very fascinating, because I remember learning it in the Gemara. I don't remember what Gemara it is, but that it says Shlomo HaMelech's throne and his crown were built custom for him. That anyone who tried to sit on Shlomo HaMelech's throne, it was a complicated system of levers and switches and all sorts of things. And if their body didn't fit perfectly on his throne, it would eject them off the throne, right? It sounds like one of those cartoons, like, boing, right? Like, just shoot him right off. And the same thing with his throne, with his crown. And this is really mind-boggling. And again, it's in the Talmud. I didn't make this up. I don't remember which Masechta it is. But it said that the crown of Shlomo HaMelech actually had grooves in it, like a complex network of lines inside of it. And the top of Shlomo HaMelech's head, this is mind-boggling, he was born with little channels into his head. And the crown aligned like a jigsaw puzzle perfectly in those little crevices. And he's the only one that crown would fit on. Furthermore, we know that Shlomo Melech never left his place with his throne as a king. It says that the kings, queens, nobles, royalty from around the world brought Shlomo Melech gifts. It's known, according to Kabbalah, that these, and maybe we're going to talk about it soon, that these gifts, these physical gifts, represent nitzutzot, sparks of godly energy that were trapped in the nations of the world, and they all brought them to the king. Who do we see this else with? There's only one other king that we ever see this behavior with. It's the Rebbe. There's thousands of videos of dignitaries, kings, queens, presidents from around the world, world leaders, government leaders, military leaders, all coming to the Rebbe. They all come to the Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't leave. The Rebbe never left one time to visit a camp. They got a flat tire, and he said he never got that hour back from the time they had to change the tire. The Rebbe never left his home base. They came from around the world to him. So it's the same idea. They brought all the sparks of godly energy to him. Anyways, so it says in the time of King Shlomo, the Jewish people were in a state of fullness, a completion. The kingdom was complete. They were at peace. In fact, it says that Mashiach himself will come from the house of David and the seed of Shlomo. Because then the Jewish people will reach our ultimate state of completion. And this is referring to this concept of that the moon once again will be full, right? Just like in the times of Shlomo Melech, we will once again reach a state of completion, and that will take place in the redemption. And we know the moon is full on the 15th of the month. So the Rebbe has a question. So what does it mean that the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon? Because when the moon is renewed at the first of the month, you don't see it. It's a little sliver. So what's going on? If the Jewish people will reach their state of completion when the Mashiach comes, that is connected to the number 15, and that is when the Jewish people are going to be full like the moon. But that's not what the pasuk says. It says the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon, which is the beginning of the month where you don't see it. So how can it be that the Jewish people will reach their state of fulfillment and completion and you're not going to see them? It doesn't make sense. In fact, it even says that in the future to come, the light of the moon will no longer receive like from the light of the sun, and the light of the moon will be complete like the light of the sun. It's known in the beginning of creation, God created the sun and the moon, and they were of equal capacity. And the moon was complaining to God and saying, how could you have two equal leaders? We're both giant lights. And God said, okay, you want to complain? I'll shrink you. And he shrunk down the moon to a fraction of the size of the sun. But it says when Mashiach comes, the moon will once again reach its state of glory and be at the same size of the sun. So how much more so does that mean that the Jewish people will be full like the moon? So why does it say we'll be renewed like the moon when you don't see us? Because you don't see the moon at the beginning of the month. I hope this is making sense. It's making sense to me, but that's not what's important because it makes sense to me. It makes sense to you all. That's what's more important. In addition to this question is emphasized even more to Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Ki lev mora al shlemus hagilui. We know lev or ela, as we said earlier, is connected to the complete revelation. When the moon will reach a state of fulfillment. And not the moment after it's reborn when it's concealed. In the first of the month. All called Serak Lahavin, Shabdiyamon, Shahagula, Mitzis Shlema Aide Darmach Mashiach, the Moled, the Chidr Slavana. So, how much more so do we have to say what this means in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach, that the moon will be renewed and reborn? Mudgashes Ma'al Yisra Sheyesh Ma'ola Bechidush Gam Nagabi Miloi Bashlemas, we go to Mitzvah Shlema, all you did, well, I read them Malchum Mashiach, Yisgala, Evo B'nei Yisrael Mala, Shehem Asirin Chadesh Kamaiser. Okay, so this is the question we're starting. What does it mean that the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon? And we know at the beginning of the month when the moon is renewed, you don't see it. And to reach its states of completion, just like in the times of Shlomo Melech, it has to be at its full capacity, which is in the middle of the month. So that's not when it's renewed. The pasuk should say, and when Mashiach comes, the Jewish people will be full like the moon once again. And this is the issue the Rebbe has about this pasuk, which with God's help, we are now going to tackle. Hey. Yuvan b'hakdam avira b'maylas halida chiddush l'Yisrael ma'ala v'tinuk v'gabi ma'amdur matzav la'achi shanasa gadol. Oh, now the Rebbe is going to talk about this concept of the Jewish people being renewed and the idea that we will become like children again, and the inherent advantage of a child over an adult. It's known that some of our greatest sages used to pray to Hashem that he should bless them, that they should be able to pray like a child. Because as we get older and as we grow in our Yiddishkeit and we learn more and we study more and we understand that God has numerous names and numerous manifestations, and in the prayers it mentions different names of God, Kel Shaddai, Kel, Elohim, Havaya, Agne. And we know, those who learn Kabbalah and Chassidus, that each one of these names represent a different manifestation of energy, of how God connects and relates to the world. And then we learn about all the Esser Sfirot and the Esser Sfirot HaGanuzot, the concealed Esser Sfirot. And we climb the ladder of Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria, and Atzilus. And then we go of Atzilus into the world of Adam Kadmon. And then there's the upper worlds, Olam HaMalbush, and all these intricate levels of godly energy ad infinitum. But a child is not aware of any of that. A child just knows is Abba. Up there is Rabbeinu Shalom. He's my father. He's my master, my teacher. So we want to learn as much Chassidus and Kabbalah as possible, and we want to understand God at the highest level possible. But when it comes to davening, we want to be like a child. We don't want to be making all kind of calculations of levels, and we just want to have a direct communication with God like a child does, to the very essence and being of God himself, which is why our great sages used to daven to Hashem that he should enable them with their tremendous amount of Torah knowledge to be able to have a clean head and pray just like a child. But make Yisrael even deeper. Yesh Maila Betinuk Pshuto Gabi Gadol Yisrael. She's Palil Ladas Zehatinuk. Gadol Yisrael Kivan Shiyadua Mivein Mumasi. This is what I just finished saying, that the great Torah scholars know about all these sfirot and all these different levels. So the Heshlo Kahadaragish Vetoari. Ele Midoisa Aidezam is Bonanan Shaka Daragish Vetoarim. Shemamavin Umisar Hain Rak to Ori Ashleila, the Dugma Ain Yehosh Amar Allah Yisberehu Mafshit Mimeno Yisrekol Marshal Hefer Haklalas. And it says that it's kind of a recap of what we just said. These great Torah scholars, in order to really connect to the essence of God in prayer, first they have to go through this process of kind of negating all the descriptions and all the different levels of godly energy and returning to a baseline of just, it's me and there's God up there and let me just pray to God. But to do that takes work, right? You have to unwind all these different descriptions and all these layers. Call Mashu, excuse me. ושלום מדרגת לדרגת נעלי אחר אלוהי תכלס ידוע שלא נדעך. So they have to go through this process of negating their knowledge. שמגיע למסקנה שלא יישאר שום ידיעה והשגה והמוסר והמוסר יספרך. כיוון שמגיע לזה הידיעה שלילה, אז כבר הדרגת בתורה. In order to reach the essence of God and its simplicity, first they must negate all these other levels and descriptions of God, all these great lofty names of God. Because they want to reach the level of God which is higher than all these descriptions. Nirgash etzel b'zeh bo'efen ilui v'pela v'lo oid eler shagish ilui hu mispalala v'shleimus dargas v'torin. This is not the case with a child. V'she'ein genati. Kivan she'ein lo musag b'dargais v'torin. The child's not aware of all these different levels of God. V'ein lo tzrik l'shlaloi the dargas v'torin, and therefore they don't need to negate all these levels because they're not aware. Now, let me just make a disclaimer here that, as I already said, but just to understand, it's extremely important to do everything you can to come to know God. And the only way in this world to come to know God is by learning Hasidus and Kabbalah, the innermost dimension of the Torah, and going deep, deep into your unconscious and the upper world, and connecting to every level of God to understand His greatness. Hasidim would meditate for hours on all these different levels of godly energy. So don't think this means, oh, maybe I should stop learning Hasidus because now I'm going to learn all these different levels. No. It means that you should have all this vast knowledge of God to know Him in the highest level capacity. But when it comes times to praying, you have to negate that stuff from your mind and pray just directly to the essence of God. He's saying a child doesn't have to go through that negation process because it doesn't exist within the child. Obviously, there's disadvantages because they can't know God in that same level. In fact, the Rambam says your level of love of God, and by the way, your love of God directly represents God's love for you. It's not a tit for tat relationship. It just means the more you love God, the more your vessel is open for God's love to enter inside of you. God's loving you all the time. But that's why it's so important to practice gratitude. Because when we have a chip on our shoulder or we have an entitlement mentality, we can't love God because we're really kind of pissed at Him. So we say we love Him, yeah, we do whatever, but we have an anger because we're not getting what we want. So by total submission and continued bittul and continued gratitude over and over again and thanking and praising and loving God, what we're doing is we're opening our capacity in our soul to move ourselves out of the way to allow God's love to penetrate inside of us. And the Rambam says your love of God is directly connected to your knowledge of God. The more you're aware of God's awesomeness through all these multiple levels and what He's created in the world, it's a vastly and amazing thing. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing these things to gain knowledge of God. It just means when it comes time to prayer, I don't want to beat this too hard, but to understand that we have to go through this level of removing those levels temporarily while we daven in order to connect to a level of God that's higher, which is the essence of God. But a child does not need to go through that process. Because a child doesn't know about all this. He doesn't know that there's a level of atzmus, machos, all these different levels. What does the child know? It's God. What does he call them? They're Avishter in Yiddish. The Avishter. God. Very simple. You can't ask a child about the different levels of the essence of God and the different manifestations of Him. Just say it. It's God. It's Hashem. It's a simple name for it. What does the Avishter mean? It means the one above. There's no intention of a child to understand these multiple levels. He gets on the mind. He just knows God's above. I'm here and God's up there. או דבר כיוון שגם הטבעיס אלו יש תוכן בגדר מסוים רק בפני שמאחרים להשתמש בביטוי מסוים. משתמשים בלשון מצוי, אבל בלשון רבינו הזקי, המאור הוא מסגלוס. Pontificating on this idea again. A child knows that that's God. That's it. There's the existence of God. Yes, of course God exists. The child gets it. They understand this concept in a very simple level. And which is what we want when we daven Hashem, right? We want to be thanking God and praising Him like a child, right? Child doesn't come and say, you should give me this because I did this for you. It's just very simplicity. Vav. כיסאות שם מזבט היחידות ביניהם גם יחס לדרגת מציאות האדם שמתקשר עם אלוקוס. עצר גדול בישראל שידוע מבין התפילה אלוקוס עירי שלילס כל דרגת התוארים גם ותשקשת הקדוש ברוך הוא שלמות היא באופן של הפשוטה והשלילת מציאות. As we just said above, a great or wise person of the Jewish people prays to Hashem through negating the multiple levels of description in order to understand or to come to a level of God's existence in its complete state without all these different levels. Negating his comprehension and his understanding of God temporarily while davening. And the Rebbe says, through negating his existence. How do we do this? The koach of Mesiras Nefesh, the power of self-sacrifice. Bittul Metzias. Avagam zeh musar nafshay. And this is requiring the surrendering of the soul, the sacrificing of the soul. Bittul Metzias. I don't want to go too off topic because there's a lot of cool things to bring about. But just to understand this, what we call Bittul Hayesh and Bittul Metzias. Bittul Hayesh is a lower level of connection to God. It's like a concept, it's like a Breslov level of Chassidus, which is connected to Hagas, your heart. I'm not knocking Breslov. I started as a Breslov Chassid. But what you're doing is you're replacing all your other things with God. So maybe before you loved food, and now you're going to channel your love to God. You love cars, you love women, you love parties, you love whatever you loved. Everyone had their own, every Baal Tshuva had their thing they were stuck on. And now you find God, and you're refocusing. The concept of the Vav meaning the hate and how it relates to Moshiach, please. In a second, it's not really on point with what we're talking about, but I'll talk about it briefly. So everyone had their own flavor of what they loved. And now all of a sudden you find God. So you find a place in your heart that has more love for something more important. So now you're taught to love God instead of loving all these other things. But it's still a self-driven thing. You're looking for something to love to replace what's lacking in your life, and you replaced it with God. Bittul Metzias is more of a Chabad level, which is in the Chokmah, Bina, and Das, which is total surrender. That means I'm not here. It's not. Of course, I love you, God. But it's not about me. It's not about I love you when you throw me a bone, when you close a business deal for me, when my wife makes the food that I like. This is a conditioned love. Bittul Metzias is I'm ceasing my own individual existence and I'm surrendering myself to you, God. And whatever you want from me, I'm here for you. As the Alter Rebbe famously said, if I had to chop wood all day long, so be it. That's what I'll do. Not why am I doing this? This is a pain. It's a waste of my time. I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. How come I can't have his job? It's just total surrender. Total surrender to God enables us to be a vessel for God to work together with us in every capacity. Let me finish this paragraph and I'll answer your question. That a child, when a child makes a blessing, he is intuitively knowing that this blessing is because God provided him with this. He's not going through this process of I have to sacrifice my life in this Mesiras Nefesh and go over all these levels. A child is just by nature wants to connect to the essence of God. And that's why the great sages would daven in order to be able to pray to God like a child. So what does this have to do? We're going to answer in a second. So again, it's not really what we're talking about, but the Vav and the hate, there's Generally speaking, and it's a much longer class, but just in 2 minutes, God's tetragrammaton, um, Yud, He, Vav, He. The Yud and the He represents Chokhmah and Bina, represents the upper worlds. The Vav and the He represents Zon Malchus, the lower worlds. Basically, the fusion together of masculine and feminine energies. This is what we talked about in last week's Sirah and Chayesera, which is Ma and Ban. The Vav represents Ma, which is a energy or a godly energy as it comes all the way down into the world. And the He represents the physical being, the physical body of a Yid, of the physical world, which is a vessel for that energy. So the goal, as we learned about it at length, you could look at, if you didn't hear last week's Sikha Chayesera, we talked about this concept at length, is to connect the godly energy from above, which is the Yud and the He, with the godly energy from below, which is the Vav and the He. Which basically means that we have full, what's the word I'm looking for? We go full in. We totally accept our role in this world, our mission in this world, and the energy that God is sending our way, we're using to bring into this physical world and to elevate this physical world. When the Vav and He are separate, what's happening is God is trying to guide us in a particular direction, and we're going in another direction. I learned a beautiful concept in Imre Bina over Shabbos, which is the hemshek from the Mittler Rebbe. And he said over there that Machshava Zoros, or alien thoughts, become your enemy. It's a very deep, profound sentence, which we don't have time to go into so much. But what it means is that if we're really honest with ourselves and we go through a state of healing, and we become an optimal channel for God's energy, when the energy comes in, if we're sensitive, we know what God really wants from us. We know what we need to be doing, what we should be doing. It's a challenge, fine. It's hard, fine. Let's take that challenge. But what happens is when we delude ourselves, and when the energy comes into us, and we feel God is trying to guide us in a particular way, but we're resisting because we don't want it, and maybe we want something else, and I don't want this life, and I want to change my life in, and I wish I had a different home, a different life, a different wife, a different job, a different car, whatever the case may be. We're resisting the energy. We're not allowing God to work through us. And when we're not allowing God to work through us, it causes a separation between the Vav and the He. And then when the lower worlds are disconnected, they can't connect to the upper worlds. Okay, Zion. He's going to know Torah's Chasidus. And now we're going to explain this according to Chasidut, which is the deepest and fifth level of the Torah. Etzel Gadol Yisrael Misgala Yiskashrus LaKodesh Baruch Hu Mitzad Dargas Gilui Mitzad Etzem Shiskashrus LaKodesh Baruch Hu Aidei Lefi Erech Habanava Hasaga Veseko Hamidos Shebelev. It's a little bit about what we were just talking about. It says that the big Talmud Chacham, the sages of the Jewish people, revealed their connection to God from a level that was in a state of revealing by connecting the level of God through and compared to our grasping understanding in our intellect, emotions, in our hearts. So, in other words, Hasidim would spend, it's a very incorrect concept that Chabad davens late so they can sleep late. Back when the first Chabad yeshiva was established, Talmidei Tamim in yeshiva, the Talmidim would wake up between 6 and 7 in the morning. In mikvah, they learn Chassidus for an hour and a half sometimes, and spend over an hour to an hour and a half with their eyes closed, just deeply contemplating the lofty divine concepts they just learned. And the idea was that so the godly energy from above could come down and enter into our brain, into our hearts, so we could think about God and get excited about God. And that's in a way that we could grasp and comprehend, each to their ability, through this deep contemplative meditation. And even more than this, we enter to the level of what we call the Ratzon v'Tainug. Ratzon and Tainug are higher levels of our soul. They're connected to the levels of our soul that don't really enter into our physical body. They're what we call makif, or above the body. And this is connected to will and pleasure. So the more we can bring this godly energy into us by learning Chassidus, by contemplating on Chassidus, and contemplating on the awesomeness of God, it arouses us to want to do what God wants from us. And the more we want to do what God wants from us, the more we're able to experience true pleasure. It's known that the pleasures of the soul are infinitely greater than the pleasures of the body. But we have to forego the simple bodily pleasures long enough to reach and tap into a deeper pleasure. It's like an example of someone who's going to work harder and for delayed gratification as opposed to instant gratification. Someone who knows that ultimately that by hard work they're going to make more money if they stick to something instead of bouncing around all the time and just trying to get a little pocket here and there. The ultimate connection we can reach to God is to the level of Yechida. Yechida is the fifth level of our soul when we're totally state of oneness with God. This is through what we call Bittul Metzias. Total and complete surrender of, I'm not here for myself, I'm here for you, God. That doesn't mean that you live a life of misery. On the contrary. Because the essence of every one of us ratzon is God's ratzon. It's impossible in our essence to want something different than what God wants from us. God only wants good from us. He only wants to give us the highest level of pleasure, of reward, of joy, of success in this world when we're in tune and aligned with God. But when we try to do what it is that we want, we're disconnected from this level and we're experiencing much smaller instant gratifications of dopamine pushes that are not really satisfying us. So the idea is to go to this level of the Yechida where we reach this total state of oneness. There's 5 levels of our soul. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida. Yechida is the highest. It's the state of oneness. It's where we reach on Yom Kippur. We have the ability to reach this level all the time if we tap into it. Shem HaMorah To'or Begether B'Siyamin. Yechida Yechidecha. The total oneness with God's oneness. This is when one's will and desire and his entire existence is to reach a state of oneness with God. The moment we switch the gear in our brain and say, you know what, I've tried to live for me and it's nice, but it's not really serving me anymore. I'm not really feeling fulfilled. I went through this stage of my life and I had an abundance and material success and wealth. Didn't feel like it anymore. So it was empty. So, like most Baal Teshuvas, I went for searching. And when you find God, the idea is not to find God and dabble with God and say, oh, well, this is nice. Let me do a little here and there. The idea is to go all in and reach. The Rebbe says the definition of exile is when you stop searching for God, when you just give up. And God makes it hard. He keeps running and hiding from you. But the more you continue to pursue this concept of a desire to achieve a oneness with God, you can, because God allows us to do this. Well, even this level of the Yechida, total oneness with God, this is through a tremendous level of work, of avoda, of going from level to level, of constant surrender and bittul and tshuva. A child is above all these levels. A child is at the level where he intuitively and instinctively and his being is connected to God. He's not searching for God. He's one with God. He's in a state of oneness with God. And we could explain this to the service of the Jewish people in our service of God as we go through our daily sequence of our day. As soon as we wake up in the morning, the first thing we say is thank you very much, Hashem, for your belief in me and your great wonders and restored my soul. That you have faith in me, God. That you gave me another day in your world to continue working as a yid and doing what I need to do. This is how we start our day, with total bittul and thanks to God. We are thanking God that we woke up, that he put our soul back inside of us, and it's my soul. He didn't mix it up with someone else's soul. And he's giving us another chance in the world to be the best that we could be. Not someone else, but us, ourselves. And the first thing we do when we woke up, we don't say ani, we don't say I, we say modeh. Praise comes before I. Meaning the first thing we're thinking about is not ourselves, but of God. שזהו ביטול והודאה שמצד העצם הנשמה, לא בכנס הרגש שבו. And this is how we start our day, framing it, connected to the very essence of our soul as a state of oneness with God. יש לומר שתששן את זה מרומז גם וטבעס מודה בגמטריה נון היי שמורז העצם של השם כוונה עצם הנשמה ויש לומר שעל זה נאמר הן אם לבדד ישכן העצם שלמעלה גם יחידה הקשתרס ויחידס גם יחידה של אדם. And this is connected to the level of our soul that's even above the yechida. Like a child, we're above the fifth level of our soul, we're connected to the very essence of our soul. When we wake up and we say Moda Ani, the first thing in the morning. That you are Hashem, our God, and you fill all the heavens and all the earth. When we're saying Moda Ani, we're surrendering to God. And it's the second we wake up that it's above God as he is connected to the heavens and the earth and all the great things he does. We're connected to the very essence of God at that moment in time. Even this fifth level of our soul, which is connected to God in its essence, it's still a description. It's not the essence of God. So we just said we're connected to the very essence of our soul when we say Modeh Ani Lefanecha in the morning, especially when we say with Kavana and we mean it. This is before we even begin reaching any type of levels of our soul. It's the essence of our soul. Because it's representing this concept of bittul or nullification and hodah of praise and thanks. You can't be a bittul if you don't have hodah. If you're not praising and thanking God, then you can't be bittul. Because what's happening is you're still angry. I was there for a long time. I understand. I'm not saying I'm bittul now. I'm just saying I understand this concept. Because you're not. It's very hard to constantly thank and bless and praise God and offer gratitude when you're holding a grudge. And inside you're pissed because you didn't really get what you wanted. And we all have that inside of us, right? Everyone feels like got shortchanged in some level. But when we could let go of that and focus instead on the good and the blessings and the thanks and the gratitude that we have, it's like in today's Yom Yom. That's how you connect to the very essence of God. And before we reach to this level, it's revealed the very essence to the essence of God. So in other words, even before we start getting to these levels of reaching connection to God, at that moment when we say Moda Ani, we're at total surrender and totally one with the essence of God. And now the Rebbe says when we start our day with Moda Ani Fanecha, we're starting our day in a total state of surrender. We're in a total state of oneness. Now we begin the process of climbing and increasing our connection to God. If we start after that, we go into the brachas, Elokeinu Neshama, the soul you put inside me is pure. The soul that you placed inside me is pure. You created, you formed it, you breathed it into me. This is corresponding to the four levels of the soul as it descends down in the four worlds. Atzilus, Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, corresponding to the four names of the soul, which is the Nefesh Ruach Chaya, Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya, the Achazeh Shahar Brachas Hashachar, and after that we say the morning blessings, and we go throughout the blessings of the day, Prati Zoysa V'Rav Tefillah, and then we go to to the shul and we daven, and our soul goes up the 4 rungs of the ladder from Asiya, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya. We climb up. That's down to up, but we climb down to up. That's up to down, but we climb down to up. And after this, we go into the world and we begin to work. And we must do our work. And the Rebbe says in the way of Derek Eretz, you don't want to spend your morning davening and learning like a mensch and then go into the world and rip people off. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to conduct yourself in a professional, honest, fair way. And this, the Rebbe says, is how you build a dwelling place for God. Below, Tess. Al pi hamor le'el yesh levor gam toichen ha'chider shuvizgula mitzvah Hashem ha'redav malach Mashiach she'im asid nitchadesh kamois. Oh, the Rebbe said, and now we're going to answer a question where it says that in the days of Mashiach, the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon. That's where we started this whole piece off on. And what does that mean? And specifically why the pasuk says that we will be renewed like the moon and not complete like the moon. The difference between when the moon is renewed versus when the moon is complete. The difference between when the moon is renewed at the beginning of the month and when it is at its state of completion in the middle of the month is connected to the revealing of the light of the moon. Hainu, in other words, every single day, the light of the moon, you can see it. It's becoming revealed and shining more and more and more, until we get to the 15th. This is not the case when the moon is first born. That now the moon, after it already waned, and before it starts waxing again, before it starts growing again, at that exact moment, מחדש מסגל המציאות של לבנה, אלא שמציאות העצם למעלה בגילוי. נמשך והוא בפועל בגילוי בסגלוס אור הלבנה מיום ליום עד למילוי והשלמת הבנה. All right, check this out. So in the beginning of the month, when the moon is renewed, before you see it, it's connected in its existence and its metzias in of itself. In other words, when the moon gets bigger and bigger, it starts becoming more and more revealed. This is similar to what we just spoke about for the last several letters, that when God's energy is revealed, it's higher and higher levels, but the true essence of God is connected above the levels. It's above revelation. It's connected to the very essence of God, where its existence and being is above this concept of levels of revealing and being seen. It's connected to the very oneness of God. And when the moon is renewed in the beginning of the month, that's exactly what's going on. It hasn't started growing and showing off lights. What's happening is its very essence at that moment is connected to God in a state of oneness, and that's why we don't see it. Let me continue on inside, because I don't want to paraphrase what the Rebbe is going to tell us, and then I'll explain it a little bit further. And this is the advantage of what we can understand, that in the true and complete redemption, the Jewish people will be renewed like the moon. Because then the very essence of the moon will be present. And this is referring to the Jewish people in our very essence, not in the state of revealing, not about our powers, our abilities, what we're doing, what we're not doing, how many mitzvahs we're doing, what kind of Torah we're learning. All that's very important. But the essence of a Jew is above all of those things. We're connected to God in our essence. We're in a state of oneness with God above any other things that we do. It's a very powerful lesson here, that we have the ability to in order to really function properly, we cannot base our value on what we do or what we don't do. We have to base our value on the essence of who we are, which is part of God. And because we're part of God, we're above our successes, our failures, our trip ups, our screw ups. It doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter. Because what matters is the essence of our soul, which is a state of oneness with God all the time, irrespective of what we do or we don't do. And that's the essence of the Jewish people, just like the essence of the moon. It's above revealing. It's above action. It's above states of what it shows that it's capable of doing or not doing. And not only that the essence is drawn down in and of itself, but it will also come to a state of revealing. It's a little bit confusing. Let me explain. Let me read it inside and then I'll explain. Namely, referring to the level that will be revealed. Nirgash, the essence which is above being revealed, and the future to come, the very true essence of the Jew is what's going to be revealed. The very essence of the Jew, which is really one with the essence of God. That the Jewish people are literally one with God. And after that, it reveals and penetrates all the 5 levels of the soul, called koichos and nefesh, including pleasure and will, seichel and midos, intellect and emotions, levushim akshavadi ramais, and our garments of thought, speech, and action. B'gufa gashmi, in our physical body, v'kol ramechi ivrim, and all 248 limbs, v'shasa gidim, and all 365 connecting tissues. Everything will be showing that the Jewish people are truly one with God. The Indian Yeshua more so there's to say Shleimus Abitis Lasi the true completion that will take place in the future with Geshes Vedika Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Kislev is emphasized mainly on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which is Kislev. Shagam Shleimus Agilui will be in its ultimate state of revealing Milui by Shleimus Levana, just like when the moon is full, Nikav Nergash Shidza Atach Yisa Hitkachu, but regularly showing the very essence of the Jew will be at its state of oneness with God, just like in the beginning of the month of the moon. Regel Modad, when it's first born, and then the true essence of the moon will be present, just like the true essence of the Yid will be present. That the essence which is above revelation then will be drawn down and revealed. In other words, we will see the true value of who we are higher than everything that we do. And at the same time, whatever we do will reflect that value. In other words, what we do, the revelation, the light of the moon, that's not our essence. When we could tap into our essence and the oneness of who we are, at that level, now we can operate in an optimal way. Because we know that whatever we do or we don't do, it doesn't affect us. You know what the difference in guilt and shame is? Guilt is you feel bad for something you did or didn't do. Shame is you're embarrassed from yourself. You feel that you're a loser, you're a screw up, you don't have a value. The idea is that when you have a strong value, when you have a strong core, when you realize you're one with God, that's your core, that's your essence. And then that gets revealed in everything you do. It's a total shift of reality. And that's what's going to happen when Moshiach comes. The true essence of every Jew is going to be revealed. And that essence, once it's revealed in its highest capacity, will enable us to work in such a way that we'll work without any guilt, any stress, no worries, nothing. Because we're connected to our essence. And that is when the moon is renewed, when you don't see it. At that moment, that's when we're going to return as Jews, when we're going to really feel in our being, and we don't have to wait. We could do that right now, that we are one with God. And we see this also as it affects the tremendous holidays that are in the month of Kislev. Hanukkah, Yud-Tes Kislev, Yud Kislev, Kashurim Hashem and Akshay Torah. As we said, all these are connected to the inner dimension of the Torah, the Chassidus of the Torah, the oil of the Torah. Gamki, all Yidei Torah Chassidus, Nase, in Yadasa, Yachayos. The vow, by learning Chassidus, this is the closest we can get to coming close to what things will be like in the days of Mashiach, when the essence of God is revealed. And the entire occupation of the world will only be to know God. And the entire earth will be covered with the knowledge of God like the water covers the ocean bed. And every Jew will have reached the highest levels of knowledge of Hashem. Good. And it's known that in the future to come, this revelation of God is completely contingent upon our work now in the exile. You get out what you put in. That's how life works. Everyone's looking for a shortcut, freebie. Doesn't work. Once in a while, you'll get a little bonus. But for the most part, you get out what you put in. The same thing. The effort we put now towards connecting to God is the level of God that we will connect to when Mashiach comes. What does it mean? That the service now to prepare for the true and complete redemption, when things will be renewed and we will be connected to the essence of God, just like the moon is renewed every single month, and it's in its essence above being revealed. True, and in his godless etzem Yisrael, and this will reveal the true essence of what is a yid, the very essence of the soul that's above even this fifth level of our soul, the yechida. Noisef all hamdu barakam pa'amim hu v'god mitzvah shlema yidei Mashiach tzikinu ba'oi v'zeh ha'echav lechem Yisrael megala nitzvah Mashiach shabo. And every single Jew, has a spark of Mashiach inside of us, and this is the level of the yechida, the fifth level of our soul. Yesh l'haisev l'tikon she'ikar hakavana hi. And this is going to add on and fix up everything. These godly essence of neshama mash, and then the essence of our soul will be revealed. Shezehu amitis in neshama Mashiach, and this is the true essence of Mashiach. Mashiach is going to reveal to us who we really are. The essence of the Jew above the fifth level of our soul, that is completely one with God. I've already found my servant David Mashiach, and I've already anointed him with oil. Mean his existence, his essence. You see, even though we don't see the Rebbe right now, we're connected to the very essence of his being, which is above even being revealed. The Mavagam together shall Metzias. Rak mipnei shel machrim. Yistamish b'toy b'siyom b'histashmim b'lashon mitzui. He metzasi dabra b'kai al etzem resham Mashiach. That I found my servant David is referring to the essence of his soul, which is the essence of the soul of Mashiach, which is above the light of Mashiach, or the description of Mashiach. This is what I mean. I found him. I found my servant. I found him connected to his essence. And after that, I anoint him with oil. In other words, the first step to reaching redemption is connecting to the essence of who we are. Then we could get into a state of redemption mode. You can't live in a state of redemptive mindset and existence when you're living a false reality, when you're not who you really are. And the only way to connect to who you really are is by connecting to the one who creates you. And who is that? It's God. Shemen ra b'chinas yichira haklalis and neshama Mashiach shechedaras b'kol yinei dugmas Hashem nuforash b'kol davar be'enin ohev b'relka echam yishor shegam lifnei shopal ba'atzma yizgal b'chinas yichida. And this is connected to the servants of every single one of us. How do we connect to this level of yichida? Bittul hada u'mistam zoros l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by totally nullifying ourselves and praising and surrendering to God. Yishna etzem etzios etzem neshama. Then we connect to the very essence of our soul, Yadia, where we can come to know God. For all this mavia, the calling in neha but before mamash kafisha, hoiderim bisgalos etzem neshama. Bizat mitis in the Vietnam Mashiach to etzem nishohu bisgalos before mamash, and then we will really see what it is a yid, really the essence of God, and truly one with every Jew. Yud Aleph. And this is what our rabbis teach us all the days of your life to bring Mashiach. All the days. Literally meaning every moment of your life. Day and night, even when you're sleeping. Every moment of your life. And what does it mean? That your entire life needs to be infused with this concept that you're here to bring Mashiach. In other words, it's not enough just to talk about Mashiach when we're learning about Mashiach and say, now I'm excited, but it needs to permeate into your entire life. In addition to literally to bring Mashiach in a literal sense, this applies to every single Jew. Does that go for the Muslim Mashiach Loshen Rabin? Literally, all the days of your life. It's known that there's two general periods of Mashiach's coming. We know, as the Rebbe says many times, it's not enough to reach the state of Mashiach, v'cheskas Mashiach, which we're already in. We need Mashiach Vadai, which is Mashiach in revealed sense. And more specifically, all the days of your life to bring Mashiach, Mizbata, V'kach, Shetechach. Hearing weird noises. Kishni or etzem neshama margish neshami avira and yeshom Mashiach avira shom Mashiach b'lashon hazal ruach shom Mashiach. Says that the ruach, that's what it says, that the Spirit of God was hovering over the earth. Bereshis is referring to Mashiach because it says the ruach of Mashiach, or the Spirit of Mashiach, is even higher than the light of Mashiach. And that's the state we're connected to right now, by the way. That's why we don't see the Rebbe. He's in a state of concealment, but because he's concealed, we don't see him. We're connected to his essence in a state of oneness. He's holding us. God's holding us too. The darker it gets out there, the closer God's holding us. We don't see him because he hasn't revealed. Revealed is a lower level. Of course, we want to see the revealing. And Mashiach will see that closest in oneness will become revealed. That's where we're headed to now. As we said, he's got this Mashiach, that the light of Mashiach is connected to Mashiach as he's conducting his activities and fighting in the world. You see in the sequence how the Rebbe literally prepared us for Gimel Tammuz. And every single thing in the Sichos, the Rebbe is showing us, and he's still with us. And he's still here, physically. We just don't see him. Because the light of Mashiach is connected to his activities and what he's doing. This is not the case of the vir of the ruach, the spirit, the air of Mashiach. That's showing the essence of Mashiach above what he's doing. Is connected to his being. His galus metzios. The Torah melech HaMashiach la'achri his galus metzios. V'tchil his galus l'nei kol yimei ha'plasra al Mashiach. Okay. And according to this, we see that the main concept of bringing Mashiach is we want to bring his essence, his very being, not just what he's doing in the world, but his being. Because all the details flow after that. So when you're connected to the essence of the Rebbe saying, this is Kislev. At that moment when you're connected to the essence, now you can really function and start to shine and grow, because you're not. I read something else very nice the other day. It said, what's the difference in excellence and perfectionism? Perfectionism is a disease. The whole goal of perfectionism is to avoid shame. That you're so afraid of being judged or laughed at or made fun at, or people tell you you're no good or you're garbage, that everything has to be perfect. Because you're afraid that if it's not perfect, someone's going to tell you you're no good. The pursuit of excellence is the goal is excellence in and of itself. It's the same idea. When you're connected to your essence, when you're connected to the very being of who you are in a state of oneness with God, and you're good with your identity of who you are, now you're not working in stress. What's revealing is your essence, not revealing of trying to do something and be someone you're not. But by starting with a baseline of total acceptance and oneness of God and who you are, you can now fulfill your life purpose. Yumtag b'dur kadashin in a deeper way. Kol mechayechad was Moshiach shechayus misgalus mitzias habua imot Moshiach kevan mitzias klal is called pratim named was Moshiach. Kulam misgalus etzem mitzias. And again, all the days of your life is to bring the days of Mashiach, not just Mashiach's activities, but the very essence of Mashiach. Yud base, and the main thing is the action. Just like we said that we will be renewed like the birth of the moon, and this is emphasized even more in the month of Kislev, or Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh Hashlishi, the third month. Hashanah Tafshanun base and your Tafshanun base that Sikh was given. So we call Echad Yisrael Lochaisef V'Yoser She'as V'Yoser always with Garas Inner Koy Mechayach the West Mashiach. The Rebbe said, first of all, everyone must add on even more in our actions and our activities. That all the days of our life should be to bring the days of Mashiach. That's where we got to start. And literally, your whole existence must be for this point. Penetrate your very existence. Bringing Mashiach should be your very essence. Yes, profound. The image that you call it Tzarich he goes Gamber Regaza Ide Isarusa Mechadashes, but Turka Mechodisha Etzem Nasham, the Avos of Mashiach. And this concept of bringing Mashiach should be arousing and renewing from the essence of your soul. That's where we're trying to get to our true identity. You can't really function in your true purpose until you have your true identity. And they go hand in hand. You got to work to find that too. We have to look at the world like it's in a perfect state of balance, and one good deed could tip the scales and bring redemption. In other words, don't look at it like it's such an impossible task. And we see that this is all through connecting to the level of the Yechida. And how do you connect to your Yechida? By learning and connecting to the Yechida of the Torah, which is Chassidus, especially connected to the Mashiach part, which is what we're doing right here every Monday night. Even your physical being, your physical body must connect to these concepts. How much more so does this apply in the month of Kislev? You make Hanukkah on the days of Hanukkah. You make Simcha V'Hallelu, the days of great joy and praise and thanks. That we must add on and enjoy joyful meals and celebrations. Call Gam Minhag and Netinas Ma'az Hanukkah Difiza Basuras Odaasha Simcha the made the goal of Yotus Yuskes. How much more so should we be celebrating in the days of redemption of Yud and Yotus Kislev? Yud Gimel. Oh wow, that's it. Finishing up early night tonight. B'hiratzon may be God's will. Hu Iker Shemetchila Chodesh Kislev, as we find ourselves from the beginning of the month of Kislev. Chodesh Aguda, the month of redemption. It will bring about the true and complete redemption. And we're already at the beginning of the true and complete redemption through our righteous Redeemer. And a king will stand up from the house of David. And he will encourage the entire world to follow after the true one God. The לעבדוי שכם אחד. רומז גם בסיום וחסם, Haftorah b'Shavua sha'aber b'tchila Parshas Shavua. So we see in the Haftorah this week. Haftorah b'Shavua sha'aber b'siyamim b'hakrizas Yechi Adoneinu Melech David Ha'olam. Long live our master, King David forever. Wasn't Crazy Lubavitchers who first started saying Yechi. Nitzchia Yismachus David is returning, talking about the eternity of the kingship of David. And then from there drew down to King Shlomo. And will reach its true completion in King Mashiach. But based on Shlomo, he will come from the house of David and the seed of Shlomo. And the very essence of Mashiach will be revealed. And we see in this week Parsha. These are the offspring of Yitzchak. Shahelid the Melech HaMashiach. He va'oifen gilui la'inin kol shemad Yitzchak li. V'lo Yitzchak v'shluach ha'hamla v'divar ha'v'lovana. Either bira asa. Yitzchak is referring to left. It's like, anyways, yeah. And it says that Esau has already been rectified. Ad asher va'al adoni. Sha'ira. And we will see the true rectification and completion of the whole world in the days of Mashiach, as it says, though Mishim Bahar Tzion, and God will come to the mount of Tzion, and it will judge the mount of Esau. So Hashem and Hashem will rule forever and ever. It should happen immediately. Wow, unbelievably amazing. Each one of us should reveal our true essence. Reveal the true essence of Mashiach that is inside of us, that's in the world. We should have the fullest galus of Mashiach, and I'll see you on the base of Mikdash. Moshiach now. God bless you.